Well, hello everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of our Inworld review. A few minutes late this week, having a few audio hiccups as happens now and again, but I think we're kind of sorted now, except for the old croak. Right, my name is Mal Burns, and kind of host this show. I'm joined on my right by James Atloud, who also fiddles with all our we call them knobs, but we mean cameras and sound sources and everything else to make things a bit more exciting, including my desktop. And on my left, my now regular co-host Thursa. So welcome, James.
Hello, Mel.
And welcome, Tessa.
Hello, Mal. Hello, everybody.
And we have a special guest with us today, as indeed we always do. I will be calling him Una, but his name is Unadecal Masala.
Good evening, Mal. Hello, everybody.
And I was putting on a nice poshy sort of accent for that one. I don't know. I got to the second name and I started thinking chicken, but I'm vegetarian, so don't worry. Okay, enough of that. So Una will be talking about his regions later on as we move on through the show. Right, well, we deal with destinations, arts, and all that sort of stuff on the hypergrid, which is basically the traveling system, if you, communication system sometimes, by which open simulator grids are all sort of connected. So if you imagine like a hundred or 1,000 Second Lives all connected together, so they're not walled gardens, then you've got an idea of what the hypergrid is. Not as any one location is quite as big as Second Life, for example, but you get the idea. Right. So Hypergrid Safari, which is one of our regular anchors, is now on vacation for a month or so until January. So we'll have a slightly different bit at the wrap up at the end here first. But first of all, to find out what's happening on the Hypergrid this week, I'm going to hand over to Thursa. So over to you, Thursa.
Thank you very much. Hypergrid
Oh,
happenings.
and
And there's an intro in here somewhere. Let's hear it now. Did that get you in the mood for dancing? Because this is the season of the parties.
Yes.
And it's working up for Christmas or whatever you celebrate. And so I've got a few seasonal events to mention, but also some other things that you can participate in. Beginning with, of course, over on Tangle Grid, one of our favorite destinations for many, many years. Lovely Leslie and on all her gang over there. They have the expo, and Mal, you and I have been to many an expo over on Tangle over the years, haven't we? I got there this morning, and it's very pretty. There's all kinds of rides and loads of freebies, and there's the ski jump, and you can get some cocoa to get you in the mood for a Christmas period. So there's the address right there on Tangle Grid, and I will put that in the comments. Next up is an Italian event for anybody who is interested in Italian fashion. This could be one for you. It's in Italian, but they always make an effort to speak some English. And this is going to be on Monday, tomorrow evening. It's 1 o'clock Second Life time, and it's all about women's fashion through the centuries, and talking about women in general, and how they've been represented through clothes. Sorry.
Yeah, the focus of the season of events, aren't they? About equality for women.
Exactly.
This
Yes.
is it. Yeah.
And very much against violence against women, and sort of showing how women shouldn't be so objectified, and all the paradoxes that
In fact,
fashion.
I do believe we went to, it was on Craft, we went to that women's event a couple of weeks back. I've got some footage.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's silent footage, so it's people reading poetry without hearing them. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
That was yeah, a great bunch of them there. The stuff they were doing.
yeah, but it was interesting event. So there's also another Christmas event. This is a fun one. This is right here on OS Grid. The lovely Thomas Etzel. He always got lots of very cool freebies available, and it's a bit of a nutcracker theme on his Christmas sim, which is called Atmos. And in fact, there's a good atmosphere over there. Next up, another thing you might want to do on a Tuesdays every week, if you like Blender or maybe you hate Blender and you would like to learn something more about it, Mike Laurie teaches a course over on AMV Grid at the Corathon Academy, and Cataplexia has loads of stuff going on over there, and this is just one of the many things.
Yeah, people go Coryphon region. Koryphon is the actual region there. I think you can.
Yes,
spell
and again, we'll stick the links in the chat in a minute so that you could just
yeah.
cut and paste. Blender, and so he's pretty good at Blender, so he's somebody who can probably help you with your problems. Again, another seasonal market. This one's over on Littlefield. It has more of a rural feel to it. You've got your red barns and so forth. So that's another fun place to go. The market and the usual entertainments with the skating and so forth. And this is another nice one that you might want to go to. There's the grand opening. This again is on Friday of Off-World Grid, which is reopening really. So there'll be a dance party over there, and it begins pretty early. I think it begins, if I'm not mistaken, at 6 o'clock European time. So that's 9 a.m. SLT, and there'll be a bunch of music and people dancing. So if you want to get in the mood for the dancing, that's the place to go. And the very last one I have is over on Counter Earth. If you like Gorian stuff, if you are interested in role play, they have an auction coming up, and that's on the 2nd of December. That means that the ladies get to say what they're prepared to do, and the gentlemen bid for them.
Because the
Could be fun.
gentlemen have to do it.
You don't have to participate, but if you're curious to see what the heck goes on a Gorian sim, this actually would be a really good way to find out if it's for you. And that's happening in the city of Tor, which is one of the prettiest regions they have over there. So, and that's happening on the 2nd. And that is my last slide.
Whoa, well. Thank you, Thursday, for that. And your outro was on time, even if the intro was a bit haywire. Wonderful. And for those of you who don't know, by the way, the bit there between the two bits of music, Hypergrid Happening segment, we cropped that when we finished the show, and we put that on Facebook as just a short events thing on the Inworld Review channel, and Safari probably at the Fastball. So there you go. Right. Okay. So getting back to the kind of other stuff. Just before we move to our guest, I'll look at a couple of other things. Spike, our friend Spike. He actually filmed his 45 minutes, an open sim fashion show, basically, Modern Shore, whatever that means.
Means fashion show.
It was, what good it was. You probably know more about this than me. I've got like this endless Star Wars intro. It's as long as the real Star Wars one. Right. Yeah, basically we've got some pictures here. I'm not. I've muted the sound here because all we're really doing is flicking through a little bit of it to give you an idea of what it's like. Were you actually? Did you go to this at all, Thursday, or we just?
I went to the closing party because I got there really late.
Right.
It was a brilliant thing, and of course the fashion is still available for anybody who wants to go there.
Yeah, this reminds me that there's a guy in a certain other place, we better not mention it, who likes filming sort of concerts. And what he does is he just plonks his camera down. He never moves the camera, but the bands come on stage and they sort of play and then they go off. And this reminds me of that because it's like a fixed camera position, and basically the different models are sort of coming up in slow motion. They just blink and you missed them, you know. But as you can see, they're coming up one side, prancing around in front of the camera. It's almost as if this is made for the camera rather than, you know, an audience as such. But anyway, yeah, showing off their virtual fashion and stuff. So you can actually find this. I'm going to go back to the beginning there. Well, not quite. You can actually find this on YouTube, and I believe. Do you remember what his account's called? Is it just Spike or?
Yeah, I believe so. But you can find it on a bunch of groups, including the HG Safari group. I shared it on there too.
Oh, on the Facebook group, yeah. Okay, so we thought we ought to tell you a little bit about that. Also, we got two vague clips from our friend. What's his name? Is this again is OpenSim? I forget where it was, but it was like the Macy's opening parade, which is something that happens in real
Oh, on
life.
Kitely.
Yeah, on Kitely, and they made it's all happening here. You can't hear it.
To make the seasons bright.
This is Michael, isn't it? The guy who filmed this, who filmed a lot of the OS Festival and stuff. But it looks very nice. A lot of
Yeah,
nice.
it's beautifully done. Yeah.
But,
I think
well,
it's called Immersion Island or something. Immersive
yeah,
Island.
yeah,
Lots of
exactly.
animish and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
And actually, got a good quantity of snow. We'll be talking about that with Una a little bit later because he's got a region
Oh,
which
excellent.
I've never seen so much snow in one place. But we'll get to that when we look at the film later. And yeah, we did have there's another clip here, and again, it's just an alternative clip of the same thing from the same person, I believe. And slightly more celebratory, different kind of music for this clip. So, oh, when is it? This wasn't Thanksgiving, is it? It's a different kind of day parade. Is it? Do you know? So in America they have a. Oh, it
Yeah, it
is
was.
Thanksgiving.
No, it was for Thanksgiving.
Right. It's just held a bit earlier in OpenSim, I think.
No, because it was last Thursday, so that's why.
Oh,
It
right.
was this
Okay.
week, Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Okay. I had the vague feeling I had it longer, but and they're even beaming the RL sim into it. Gosh golly. What else? Oh yes. Right. It looks like the first clip was.
Macy's 95th Thanksgiving Day Parade. We want to thank the thousands of volunteers who labored tirelessly throughout the year to mount once again this, we call it the Miracle on 34th Street. And we'd also like to pay.
So a bit of a quiet week in many ways, but that's one of the reasons. It's called Thanksgiving Day in America. And finally, this is a little thing. In 2 weeks' time, we have the Open Simulator Community Conference. Now, I'm actually supposed to be hosting this lady, Nara Nuke, and her friends, but I wasn't invited to the rehearsal. So I don't know what they're doing. But she did post this little teaser, which is kind of as you can see, she's dancing with a horde of cows. Apparently, I'm going to have a flying saucer follow me or something, but
Oh gosh.
it's all being kept under wraps, as it were. Maybe that guy, I'm a bit worried, the flying saucer following me. But if I might get abducted by a virtual alien, then I wouldn't be able to
Could
take.
happen.
And this is immediately before Safari. So imagine I get abducted by a virtual alien and can't make Safari. So
I don't know. I think they'll abduct you and they'll immediately give you back and
it
apologize.
will be something like that. It will be something like that, I'm sure. Okay, right. Well, that's. I'm just excuse me while I dispose of IR done. So I'm just going to move those clips out of our way here a bit so that we don't accidentally Um, watch them again. It's called backstage management. This right, and then we have those two. And there we go. Right, so moving on. So I'd like to welcome our guest this week. As I said, I'm going to be calling him Una, but his whole avatar name is Unadecal or Masala. It's not Masala, is it? It's Masala, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
simple masala.
okay. Well, welcome to you, Una.
Thank, thank you for having me.
Right. We did have a few problems with audio earlier, so we're a bit wary about maybe you fading in and out or something. So we'll just hope you get close to the microphone and tell us what's going on. Um, Tell us, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm going to move to, before we go to more video, I'm going to move to a screen which has some pictures you brought with us, and I'm just going to flick through them right now as we're talking. But tell us a little about yourself and your region, I think, in general, before we move to the video.
Yeah, sure. Basically, I came full time into OpenSim from Second Life in 2014, 2015, thereabouts. And I've been hosting my own grid since then. But during the pandemic, during lockdown, I started playing with online servers, cloud servers, and all of that. And from then, just by chance, people asked me to host regions for them and started paying me for it. So I started getting into the rental business.
All right.
And how many regions do you have at the moment?
Um,
Because are they all here on OS grid, or are some on other grids?
well, all of my regions, all of the regions that I rent individually are in Osgrid,
Hmm.
but I also rent full grids. You went last week to see Star Ravenhurst,
Yes.
if I'm correct. That's one of my grids.
Oh,
Um, yeah. um, Thomas Etzel, he's one of my clients, for example.
yeah,
You were
fabulous.
just talking. You were just talking about him now. Um, widespread in Osgrid and in other grids which I host as well because I'm able to provide entire servers that connect to Osgrid or it's just as easy to configure them as an independent grid.
I'm just showing a few of your pictures while we're talking. I've paused on one here. I'm just looking at that sun, or rather sunset. I mean, that's not actually in the sky, is it? Is that kind of some kind of sun you've raised on the horizon that's doing that?
No. That's either the default sun in the sim as per the old style Sims, or it may be EEP, but I don't think so because we weren't even playing with EEP at the time that these pictures were taken.
Ah,
Um, that's
okay,
just the normal sunset or sunrise or whichever one it is. I'm not
maybe.
sure.
Okay, it's just so dominant. I thought maybe it would be the EP thing or something, but yeah. Sorry, carry on telling us. I'll move on the slot. So, is it? Oh,
Um,
there it is again.
well, those pictures are just
Hello.
the rent sim because basically new people who've just arrived on the grid, maybe they've come from Second Life or from another grid and they don't have much on them in terms of inventory, in terms of knowledge of how to build a region or anything like that. But they want somewhere where they can call home sort of quickly. So I've got a few templates that they can have. Um, I load them for them, and they have a home almost immediately. Um,
I think you hit on something really key there, Una, because that is often the biggest problem that people come to OpenSim and they feel that they have to reinvent the whole entire world, and it's just too daunting. It's, oh God, I just don't have the time or the knowledge to do all that. But I would like to have somewhere virtual where I can just relax. I don't want to have to do all the work.
Or ride on horseback like this. I used to love doing that.
That's right. Yeah, even having even getting yourself a decent avatar can be a bit of a mission. I mean, these days I send people directly to Agora and say, well, find the pre-made avatar and then tweak it. But without tools like that, without regions like that give you all of those resources already, it's very difficult even to set up your own avatar. Never mind an entire region.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're coming from Second Life and you're used to the Second Life marketplace kind of setup where you don't have to go anywhere. You just can sit there on your computer, and if you have enough money, you can buy everything that you want. OpenSim is incredibly challenging, and it's easy for us to forget that if we've been here for a while, that a lot of people just do not have physically the time to do that much hunting around, finding resources. So it's
Exactly.
wonderful, that
Isn't
idea.
isn't the challenge very much part of what it is? For example, you could almost call, say, Second Life is almost, despite the variety of stuff in it and its land size, I mean, it's a consumer platform. Whereas
Yes.
OpenSim is, you know, I mean, it's not for business, we're consumers as opposed to businesses, for example, but it's driven by creativity and a do-it-yourself approach and the freedom that implies
Mm.
rather than, the consumer world where everything's on the shelf and subject to certain rules and stuff. So,
Well, I bear a little bit of guilt myself about turning Osgrid, which is essentially a free platform, into a business platform for myself, where I'm actually uh, taking some sort of an income from it. Um, but I'm driven by the fact that it's setting up a region, even the technical aspects of downloading the software, setting up your router if you have to, um, establishing your region on your computer and connecting it to Ostgrid or whichever other grid may be a daunting experience as well. And some people find it impossible because of all sorts of technical shortcomings. Um,
But but there's another thing too, Una. A lot of people, yes, it's lovely to have a free place, but a lot of people then, if it is free, they feel like they cannot say anything if things go wrong, that they just have to put up with it. So,
uh,
there's a huge advantage in a way. If people are paying, they're not paying a vast amount of money like they would be in Second Life, but they at least if they're paying you some money, they feel that they can say, oh, it doesn't work. Can you fix it?
well, as I put it, it's a life affirming experience of being able to scream at a landlord if needed.
Absolutely. And believe me, they do scream.
Oh. What's the craziest thing you've ever been asked, Una?
Nothing really crazy. It's just challenges, small challenges which are taken on an incremental basis. I went from renting a few small sims to renting entire servers to setting up grids for people. Um, so nothing really crazy. It's just little challenges which we take on a daily basis, and some take a little longer to surmount than others. But I must say, I'm having a lot of support from Dan Banner and everybody else in the grid. So whenever I have a technical challenge that I cannot deal with on my own, so which all goes back into the community actually, because then makes me better able to support my clients, which is the community at large. Um,
I've just paused on it's one of the last pictures I think actually. So when I'm filming, to talk over film, it's harder to actually go indoors and film a place adequately indoors. So this is a nice indoor shot, and I'm curious because I presume this is one of your rentals. In other words, it's the inside of somebody's house or maybe your own. I don't know, but sorry.
No, it's still the template. So anybody who rents from me can have that template, can have that house with that decor.
Right, that's sort of what I was going to ask, is whether, people who rent land off you build their own house and decorate it themselves, or maybe they rent a house off you but handle the interior decorations themselves, or whether, as I look at this, I think, well, have you rented them a fully furnished property? So there's different kinds. It's like the real world. Some people
Oh
rent.
well, they get the fully furnished region with everything, and if they want to change anything, they're free to do so. They're free to gut the house or take the house out altogether and replace it with something else. They can do whatever it is, because from that point on, it's their region, it's their
Yeah,
items, and they've got the freedom to do whatever they want with it.
that's like you say, you set them up with a nice starting point, so to speak, so they can decorate at will rather than starting from scratch. So yeah, that's a lovely interior, by the way. That picture itself,
Yes, it is.
and I think this is. I'm guessing this is the same building upstairs somewhere.
Yes,
Um, with its
that's the loft in the cabin. Yes.
yeah, sort of bedroom there with a sort of small double bed, actually, really. Oh, and the green. Oh, right, here's a greenhouse. So yeah, I think this is probably the same bit where we started the photo show from. I must say, it all looks very. I'm very into the lush sort of
Mhm.
greenery and trees and rolling terrain and the wildness of it. Being a person who lives in a city, it's in a way the virtual world is a bit of an escape to the wilder side of things, which I experience in real life a lot less these days than I used to. But yeah, and that's well. I'm going to move over. We're going to continue talking. I'm going to move over to if you're watching this in World, it's the middle screen now above us,
Ah, yes.
and that's where I got some. That's actually my desktop where I'm playing all the videos from. So this first one is very short actually, but when I came in to do the filming, I met you briefly. You were standing in the middle of a region, and as I zoomed into where you were, I came across an elephant, and I thought the elephant was far more suitable for filming than you were. Um,
I'm blown
no,
away.
no
Yeah,
offense,
you don't want pictures of me.
yeah,
Um,
no offense intended. So this is the elephant. He's literally a few yards away from you. Were you standing at the crossroads, if I remember
yes.
rightly? I saw elephant. It's actually, it's very quick little film this, but it's well animated. Guzzling up
Uh,
stuff at this point.
yeah, that region is.
Sorry, I think we lost you again. The region is.
Oh, it's my showcase region, and
Yeah.
it's been going since 2019 when a lady from AMV called Minuet Dufault started building it for me. Um, it's called Una's Retreat, and it's supposed to be a medieval landscape-ish sort of open space where people can walk and explore, get lost, ride horses. But it also has urban areas. It has a castle at the top of the mountain. It's got a few harbors. Um, it grew from a 4x4 into an 8x8, and then I had to split it into several 4x4s. It now occupies 16 4x4s in a big area. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
I used to use these. For those of you who don't know, in the hypergrid, a single region is much the same size as in Second Life and other platforms, but they have what they call VAR regions, which are always square. In other words, they're 2x2, 3x3, 4x4, and you don't have any problems about going over boundaries because they're all the same region. But obviously, as I think you're saying, they can get a bit unwieldy when I mean I operated a 5x5 one and it was big.
yes, they can get a bit unwieldy and laggy and so on. So in the end, I had to split it back into smaller regions. many smaller regions, which is what it's now. But
I,
this lady has a penchant for adding land and more land and more land. I
yeah.
keep telling her, no, don't build to the edge of the region because it looks a bit ugly.
Yeah.
So
So you,
every time I have to add more regions around it, and she keeps pushing the land and
I,
doing new things.
I I used to be like that too, So before I finished, getting one region ready, as it were, I thought, oh God, I'm at the edge of the bar. I better have a line more at the west and the line more at the east, north. Yeah. But yeah, this is all very lovely anyway. Down it's sort of, I must admit, well, probably I'll pan out into the sky again in a minute, I should think. But I was a bit confused when I was first there because I saw you standing at the crossroads junction, as it were, and I thought
Hmm.
we were the centre of a big region. And as I panned out, I realised it was just a small area with water around it, and what you actually have are lots of little islands joined by bridges. And of
That's
course,
right.
eventually, as you'll see, my camera goes a roaming a bit more and gets to a bigger, more what you might call mainlandy kind of environments. Oh, hang on, I've got to start the next bit up. Right.
So I was curious, Una, to know how you rent Sims to different people and mini grids and so forth. So how do people find you to become your tenants, as it were? Is it
Well,
mostly word of mouth? How does that work?
it's 99% word of mouth. Some people find me from World. Some people find me from Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, but it's 99% word of mouth and reputation. Um, People like Aussie, for example, sends a lot of business my way. When anybody asks where they can get land, where they can get regions, uh, he sends them to me or to whoever happens to be around with it. I'm not the only one who does this. There's also Christina Resident that does this, and Prince of Amour. Um, but I seem to have gained some sort of reputation for the service and the regions that I provide. So 99% of my business is word of mouth.
I love this bit. That's great. That beautiful island you got there.
Yeah, it's in that. This is what I meant. I landed in that sort of top one there, and sort of, I thought it was a bigger area than it was. Then I realised this little eye was going off one way and another little coming another way, and I got lost. I got lost just in camera. I didn't know where the hell.
I still get lost going to that region. It's so expansive and there's so much to see and so many trails that I still get lost around there.
Yeah.
Well,
I
it's a great indoors, isn't it? Instead of the outdoors, it's the indoors. That's the wonderful
Yes,
thing about OpenSim. It's just you could just spend hours walking around or horse riding and seeing these wonderful places. It looks great.
everything but the smell of the sea. Even got the sounds and the gulls flying around and everything, but not the sound. We're not quite. I mean, the smell.
So,
Yeah.
so taking this job on, I was just wondering, is this for you like a 24/7 job? Do you find you helping your tenants or dealing with problems that come up? Is it more of a full-time job than you expected it to be? How does that work?
it has grown over time. It started as a small um, hobby, shall we say, but it's started taking over my life to a point that I'm actually thinking about quitting my full time job and just taking a little part time job so that I can take care of national insurance, pension, and all of that, and just dedicate all my extra time, all my available time to this.
So
Because
it's a real passion then as well as being as income, but you also obviously love it then.
Oh yeah, I love being in world and being able to help people in world and providing this service for them, because there aren't many people who can do this
Ah, there
or
you are.
who are willing to do this to the extent that I'm doing it. So yes, for me, it's a great way to spend my time and spend time with people in world. Obviously, um, it means that I can't go to parties and event plaza and all of that, all those other gigs as much as I used to do. I do go occasionally still, and I miss a lot of the safaris as well, which really
Oh,
hurts. Yeah, I know, that's bad. Um, but I
That's
really
all
love
right. You've
doing
got to
this.
work.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty. I'm just looking at the screen. What a great place. Wow,
yeah.
and you must meet a lot of creative people in your travels around your tenants' lands and
Yes, virtually all of my clients and tenants are very creative people, and because they basically come to me looking for a place where they can exercise that creativity, which is amazing. Like Thomas, for example, whom you were talking about earlier, but
I'm a
there
big
are
fan.
there are a great many. Most of them are really creative, and they just want a little piece of land where they can exercise their creativity in peace. Or if they've had problems on other grids, they just want to set up their own grid where they can do their own thing in peace. And that's where I come in and provide the service that they're looking for.
So
Um,
does this mean you also come into contact with people who are experimenting with things, technical aspects of OpenSim like physics and things like that? Do you come into contact with people who've got projects in their mind that they're trying to find a place to, to experiment?
Yes, there is one person in particular that I'm thinking of right now, and I'm not at liberty to discuss what he's got planned, but he's actually trying to add to the OpenSim project, or change it into a different sort of way that where things are going to be much more integrated between a viewer, which will try to be as much as possible web-based, for example. The robust services, i.e., all the grid services, much more integrated and working in a slightly different way. It's going to diverge from the classical OpenSim project, but he's got really, really big ideas for the direction in which he wants to take
Uh,
OpenSim.
may I ask who we're talking about here?
I'm not at liberty to say because the project is not yet mature enough to be discussed. I've just been given some snippets as to what he's planning to
I
do.
after the safari at the Open Sim conference, I actually have a panel, which is a sort of glorified version of the viewer panel, and I gather some people who I don't particularly know that well are going to be joining me on it, who are working on. Most of the projects are actually rebuilding the viewer using a Unity interface for the interface. In other words, the content is still OpenSim.
Hmm. Right.
So quite a lot of interesting things. So there's a lady called Callista who was working on something with oh god, is it Mr. Blue Guy? Is it? You know, all behind the scenes, you hardly hear of what they. And then Sunday, I'm told, well, we're going to round these people up for the conference.
Yeah, and it's all hush hush. They tell you about it, but also tell you, yeah, it's all hush hush. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
But that's
Well, don't tell
exciting that
me.
even
Don't
though,
tell me. I want to tell people.
but that's exciting that you staying home and you were saying that you don't get to go to all the events that are happening. But even if you're staying home, it seems like you get some pretty exciting news come your way, even though you're not going anywhere. The people are coming to you, so that's great.
Yeah, well, I will try to make a point to go to conference because there's always something interesting going on in there. So and all sorts of people who you don't see very often. So
And I think too, you mentioned you don't go, to the parties and those kind of events that much, maybe if not safari, but Um, you know, there's still the web and there's the developer communities where you're not reliant on going to a destination in world. You're just keeping an eye on what people are doing. So I presume you follow, you know, developer channels and stuff a little bit because in running your own region, it's sort of part of the course, I imagine.
Yeah, a little bit, not that much, but yeah, it's basically the time that I spend in world and the time that I spend on my desk in front of the computer is spent on user requests or on um, um, setting up a new grid or doing a little bit of firefighting. There's always something to fix. There's always new requests. Um, and of course, it's non-stop
Let me, while
drive to sell more, to
I,
sell more regions.
in case you're wondering why I paused the video, I was doing some filming there, the stuff we've seen already, and then when I stopped filming, I found a couple of landmarks from you pointing me to other places, and this one is actually your. I paused here. My interface is still showing, unfortunately, but this was actually you pointed me here because this is actually your office. So
That's right. Yeah, that's my home region. That's the first impression anybody coming to look for me will get, and it's actually I excised that from Una's retreat. I went and took a little island from Una's retreat and then made it its own region, taking the vegetation and all that, and I set up my office there.
there we are. Yeah, a nice lush desk I see.
Yes.
It's actually very nice. It's a L shape and sort of like leathery old time. Yeah, good stuff there.
And of course, it's a pretty enough region to live on. But yeah, it's my home in Osgrid, I suppose. But it's not really set up as a home as
Yeah.
such.
Well, I had a big VAR region I mentioned, which was on an Outworlds grid. I hosted myself, but you know, there's a small bit of it that I always
Hmm.
logged into. That was like my home, and then
Hmm.
everything else was just expanding outwards from it. You know,
So I
you,
have another question for you, Una, which is some people think that OpenSim is finished. You know, you hear these things. You see, hear it about Second Life every now and again. Oh, it's finished, but clearly it isn't. But I'm curious to know which direction you think OpenSim should go in. Some people think if we should try and be everybody having their own personal grids, mini grids, with as many sims as they can afford or manage to have on their computer. Some people prefer a large grid like OS Grid or Kitely or somewhere like that where there is more sort of people, perhaps more of a community above and beyond the hypergrid, just within their own uh, national borders, if you will, on a grid. And some people go for more the hybrid concept, which is yes, there should be bigger grids because it forms a bigger community and a sort of movement of people. But at the same time, there should be the mini grids because that's also a very good resource for different situations, different problems, and different projects. How do you see the future of OpenSim in general?
Well, I'm firmly of the opinion that a mixed bag of small grids, personal regions, and large grids is the way to go. Because there's always going to be people who want to flock to the big grids, such as Osgrid or Avitron or whichever grid it is. Um, there may be smaller grids that grow into a bigger grid. I mean, no large grid has ever been born large. They've all started small and grown in time.
yeah,
But there's always a call for people who want to do it themselves. I mean, Dream Grid, the fantastic software by Fred, is ubiquitous in the small grid space. in the personal grid space and in the personal region space. Um, because it runs on Windows, you can just download it, install it, and it runs, and it doesn't need much configuration at all. Um, when we have tools like that, and that anybody can have a hypergrid connected private region or private grid, a lot of people are going to choose that route for their own privacy, to be unencumbered with the politics in a larger grid. Um, and yeah, they can travel, they can go shopping, they can go to events, and that's as much socializing as they want to do without having to live in a large grid. You know, so some people want to live in the big city, and some people want to live in a small rural area where they've only got a couple of people around in months.
I
So
agree. Yeah, you need a mix. Variety
exactly.
is the spice of life. Yeah.
Now, talking about variety, and moving back to the video here, after I saw your office, you gave me one more landmark to go to, and I've got about 6 minutes of footage here. I've never seen so much snow fall. I don't mean on the ground, but I mean actually falling in my life. I mean, we've all raised a bit of snow in the sky and let it fall on our land before now, but you've got an astonishing amount here, and it's absolute. Given the season, this is almost
Yes.
like this is like the picture postcard view of Xmas. It's even though it's not, it's the ultimate winter time here, but it's just so picturesque. So
Yeah.
I paused this so you can actually give us some commentary on this itself because it's wonderful.
Well, that's called Victorian Christmas, and it's a region that um, Jael Fallowdeer, who's one of my clients, and Zori Jupiter built as as a tribute to the grid. I host it. It's on one of my servers, but they built it for the grid, so that we can have events there. And people can visit and spend some time looking at something that's laid out as a traditional Victorian Christmas. Um,
So
it's a
Zori
really
built.
beautiful film. Yeah,
Did you
Zuri
say
built
Zori
it.
built it? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
she's a great singer too, isn't she?
Yes, she is. She is
Zori,
a very
fabulous
talented
singer.
artist in her own right.
Yeah.
She paints in real life. She plays the guitar and the ukulele, of course. She sings. She's extremely talented in all sorts of ways, and she's got a great eye for decoration and scene building. All of my demo regions, my template regions that I have at the moment, were built by her actually. Um,
Wow.
oh, and you heard it here first. On the 21st of December, we will have a concert by Zuri Jupiter. It's going to be a formal event, and it's going to be hosted at Victorian Christmas
Ah,
Lovely.
with a backdrop of snow.
with a backdrop of snow in tuxedos and evening dresses, if you have them. She'll be singing, and it's going to be a fantastic event. We
Oh,
will
happy
be
now.
all tips will go towards the grid. So yeah, I look forward to seeing everybody there. We'll have to
That's
start
great.
advertising it now.
Mm.
You know how it is in the real world, he says, when you wake up and there's snow on the ground a really winter morning and the snow is just coming down thick and settling, and it it looks like there's a mist in front of you because there's so much snow. And this replicates that feeling just so
Mm.
Yes,
well.
it's
How
breathtaking actually.
how did you get so much snow? I mean, is it just lots and lots of scripted snow falling, or is there a special? Did you come up?
I'm not sure how they did it. I would like to know myself.
Yes,
Um,
we all would.
we will have to ask her. Yes.
Yeah, it just works so well. You can just you really feel. Just
Yes.
the I did one bit, not with the snow, but of my own ones, where I put a snow texture on a mesh on the ground, and then I duplicated the mesh so there was up just the tiniest bit on the top, but the top layer was phantom. So
Uh-huh.
when you walked around up and down the hills, you didn't sink into the snow, but your boots did.
Uh-huh.
Oh, how
Very
wonderful.
clever.
You had the feeling, because it was a duplicate mesh on top of each other, and the top layer was phantom, so you were sinking down to boot level, into the snow as you walked, which of course is how it would be in the real world. So um, there's tricks we can get up to, eh?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
what a beautiful place. All these places I really want. I don't think I've seen them. I'd love to go. I'll make a
Uh,
plan to go visit.
yeah, this
Please
concert,
do.
yeah, this concert on the
Mm,
23rd should be good. Yeah.
yes.
That's still a way off, so maybe convene a special safari or something
Yeah,
just to gate crash the concert. No, I did this. You can tell by the as soon as you got me over here, it was the last stop, and then no hurry to get out of here. That was for sure. I was enjoying it too.
fabulous.
Uh, yeah, and the great old city hall.
Oh, talking about Victorian Christmas, obviously it's another region. It's not something that I do for the business, but it allows me to speak of something else that having a business in OpenSim allows me to do. The fact that I get a little bit of income from this. Gives me a lot of free space, extra server space, where I can host regions for good causes, shall I say.
Right.
And I do so regularly as well. I host regions for people who contribute to Osgrid on like Percy and Greybeard and other people like that. Um, I've given them regions in the past, and they don't need to pay me because they're already putting so much work for the good of the grid that I wouldn't be able to take the money.
Yeah.
Well, and we appreciate the fact that the region we're on right now, you donated it for the Exupéry build, the one about the Little Prince. So it's much appreciated to have that space to be able to make a really good, interesting art build,
I love the way
and it's been very popular.
there's a clip there where the snow's falling through the window.
Yeah,
It's like
very
misplaced
cute.
snow, but it's just a charm. It's good. I've got
Just love it.
a little bit of the indoor thing because all that Victorian thing is just as all the work's been done inside as well. So
Yeah, lots of detail. Fabulous job.
Yeah,
shame,
I love that place.
shame about a leaking roof, eh?
Yeah,
Yes,
well, that can happen in real life too. So.
I'll have to send the builders around.
Yeah. No, it's really great stuff. So it looks like this is the end of the film footage as such. But yeah, there it is.
It's been a great adventure to see what you do and understand a little bit better what it means to be a host of regions and of mini grids, because it's one of those things we're all aware is going on all around us. But to have you here today, it's been eye-opening and very interesting to see how it has affected even in your real life, your love of OpenSim and the way you've been able to integrate it into your everyday life. Fascinating. Thank you for coming. It's been
No,
brilliant.
thank you for having me. It's been great to share my passion with you.
Yeah. I just feel like it's. I'm not a fan of Christmas or anything like that. I don't celebrate them, but I just feel like I've just been on a little short journey into
Yes, Winter Wonderland.
the wise wonderland, yes, as it were. So, yeah, absolutely fascinating. Right. Well, we've um, You're welcome to hang on, for a little bit. We're sort of surrounding off things a little bit now. We've just got a few things. This point in the show, we normally have a look back on the oh, good old Toast's loaded the screen already on what happened this week in Safari. But guess what? It did.
Nothing happens.
But before we move on to the slide schedule here and stuff, although we didn't have a safari this week, we actually called a load of people from the safari to the clubhouse for a non-safari, but a kind of round table where we were looking back on. Not like we did on the show last week, where Fezza and I were looking back and with James on the different seasons, but it was just a sort of round table thing, and you're not going to see much of this because we filmed this specially for the OSCC conference because we'll be doing a special safari for that. And whilst the safari is on in World for 2 hours, we have filmed this round table and a load of regions and a couple of interviews. So there's equally 2 hours of stuff running, as it were, on the TV stream of the event, which will be complementary to what we're doing on the safari at the same time. But we have got some here, and I thought it would be rather nice to just pan in a little bit and give you an idea of what's going on. I won't do the very intro, but you'll see.
Not really.
Yeah, well, it's like we have a little dinner party of sorts here of a few of our safari regulars, and this film, we're recording this, and it's going out on the channel as the Open Sim Community Conference, which is basically the more formal get together. No dinner parties there. We'll be doing a public safari for 2 hours at the conference, and basically we'll have 4 stops, and people will hang on into 4 stops for 20 minutes or so. And we have interviews with the hosts and some footage of the regions we're visiting. But we thought to make it sort of more acute, we'd have this little round table, as it were, of regulars from Safari to give you guys at the conference a better idea of what we like about it and what is happening here. Now, you've already just heard Thursday, who's the person who convenes the safari, as it were, and has been doing so for however many years it is. How many is it, Thursday? It's a long time.
We did it for 4 years, and then I took a break, and now we've done it for another year, so 5 years altogether.
Right. And so, yeah, we just celebrated another year, and we broadcasted a connection with it each week as well on our Inworld Reviews shows. So a bit of self-publicity there. I'm going to scroll along. As I said, you're not going to be allowed to see the rest of it, but maybe just a few odd bits as we move around. James is doing a wonderful job filming this, and just some of the characters here. Right. Well, now we're on air. She's not so keen. Bonsoir, Sherry. And we're joined. Dabishi is another of our members. Hi, Dabishi. I think everybody's got stage fright all of a sudden.
No.
Hi, Kelso.
Hello, Mom.
Hi, Kelso.
I'm here online and eager to participate.
Wonderful. Okay. And hopefully we've got Nara here. Nara Nuke. Or Nara
Yes.
Malone, depending on.
Yeah.
Hi, Nara.
I'm here. Hello, Mel.
And we have Star Ravenhurst as well. Star, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
And also our wonderful cameraman, James Outloud, is here as well. So he's probably connected.
But, yeah, I'm here in some fashion.
Although James is trying to camera around to the
Okay,
speakers.
start with Kelso, because I think Kelso Kelso and Debbie G are kind of extraordinarily unique, because that's a husband and wife team, and not only do they have their own grid, but they also come on safari, and I think we all agree, really appreciate what they do, in not only in hosting us so many times, but also coming around. And I'm just curious, as grid owners, how do they experience the safari? This big group of people wandering around the hyperverse. What's it like for you, Kelso?
Certainly appreciate every week to make a tour with our friends and visit new locations. Especially that Tirza is establishing the contact with the grid owners to make sure that what we will be visiting is worth seeing.
I'm not too laggy. Yeah.
Yeah, we do pretty good these days, don't you think? I got the impression from everybody's comments during this round table that it's certainly compared with years ago. Just about every grid you go to is quite stable. It can handle lag. It's very rare that we come across a place that has serious problems when 20 people just drop by. It's amazing how it's changed, because that's not what we experienced back in 2014 when it started.
Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, one final bit. I see Humble Tim's about to appear. Tim, are you on voice? Yes, you are.
Yeah. Hello. I'm not sure I've ever been called a wonderful creature before, but thank you.
Well, we're cameramen, you see. We're zooming
He's
in
the
on
lucky
you.
charm of the safari. If Humble Tim is with us, we never crash.
Oh,
Oh, that was a good luck charm, wasn't it? Okay, I better hold the rest of that back for conference. But I thought it would give you a good idea what we did when there wasn't a safari. We did a sort of non-safari. Right, now, so this is moving on. We've got a couple of slides for... we'll be looking a bit more at OSCC next week. Hopefully we'll have Leo Lobo, who's one of the organisers, with us to talk us through the events, the agenda, and what's going to be happening the weekend after. And the weekend after, we won't be on air here because we'll actually be on there. And in fact, we'll probably have just finished showing that very clip we've seen now. But Thursday, we've got a couple of other slides up here, haven't we?
Yes, I popped up the schedule at a glance, which James gave me, which shows all the events that will be happening on the Saturday and the Sunday. That is December 10th and December 11th. And I expect he's got that in his camera. So you can see there's loads of stuff happening. There's people talking about the projects, there's people talking about art, there's people talking about education, lots and lots of different things. Mal is doing, as he said earlier, a panel about the viewer, and he's also doing another thing about open metaverse, aren't you, on the Saturday?
Okay.
So something for everybody, really. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and of course, I'm just okay, yeah, 11 a.m. This is all Pacific time, of course, by the way, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Oh no, sorry, to 1 p.m. That's right. It's the safari there,
That's right.
and then the return of the viewer panels immediately after that.
Absolutely.
So I'm almost hoping the safari overruns. Then
Don't say that. We're coming back.
rescue me from the panel.
Okay, and I have another slide here, which is there we go.
Oh yeah.
And this one shows it's on Expo Zone 3, which is the name of the sim on OSCC Grid. There are, I think, 6 expo zones. So on this particular sim, you can find the booths that tell you about all the different speakers. Each person has their booth with information about themselves.
Yeah, basically, it's an area where every speaker or person on stage over the course of the weekend gets a free booth to hang out in. I mean, booth 2 there says me, but I mean, in fact, if you actually stand there, there's photographs of all the panelists, so I haven't got one.
Oh, cool.
It's not one to myself, so to speak. Yeah, and yeah, that's fine. Also on, of course, we haven't got it filmed here, but as Thursday and I know, because we've just been doing a bit of work on it, on the Expo Zone 2, isn't it? Where James has a little parked region, and we have a copy of our studio, this very studio, there's there in fact, and also diagonally across on the same region, Safari has. Well, yeah, it's a safari exhibit, really. It's like a quarter of a sim with lots of stands telling people, how the safari works, how the hypergrid works, suggesting places they could go. A little bit less on the hypergates this year because it's like websites, 1 year they're there, 1 year they're not, and the last thing you want is a hypergate that leads to nowhere. But there are still
That's right. Yeah.
plenty of
True
them.
enough.
Plenty of them that are actually active still as well. So
And also, so many of the places, it's not that they're not there anymore, they just moved. So the landmark or the portal doesn't work, but the place is still there. It's just on a different grid now. So, yeah. Anyway, looking forward to hearing Leo next week. That will be excellent.
yeah, my favourite is the landmark. The hypergates that lead to a sky platform that's no longer there. I'm sure you know what I mean. Hang on, is it 3,000 feet or 30,000 feet? Right. Somebody's been a bit quiet there. Of course, he's dutifully filming, of course. But James, we've barely heard from you this week. Have you got any thoughts for Una or Des or anything?
Well, sure. I mean, well, as I was thinking, I was looking at all the wonderful things that he built on his regions, and I just wondered what his thoughts are about the metaverse. Where is the metaverse? What is the metaverse? How does OpenSim fit in the metaverse?
Don't you mean who is the metaverse?
Or who is the metaverse? Right. Why is the metaverse?
Lord Zuki? No, sorry, seriously, good question.
Who is the metaverse and how does OpenSim fit on the metaverse? I think that just like with cryptocurrencies, we've seen a movement to make the metaverse hip and relevant and fashionable, and still and also monetize it in a big way by the big companies, without even realizing that such thing as OpenSim already exists. It's a very established, mature metaverse offering, open source, open to anybody, unlike Second Life, in terms of land ownership and presence. Yes, anybody can make an account in Second Life, but not anybody can own land in Second Life. But just about anybody can own land and have a good presence in OpenSim. And I think these big companies have failed to take a good look at OpenSim and see what it has to offer. Very interesting bit of trivia. Have you heard of the game Roblox?
Oh, yes. Yep.
It was based originally on OpenSim 0.7.
Oh,
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So there is a possibility to grow OpenSim into something that's financially viable, that's big business, that's workable, and where just about anybody can have access. And these companies have failed to look at that model and do something really relevant with it, because metaverse, as in what Meta has done with it, I don't think is really relevant to anyone. I think it's just been a big tax write-off on the part of the Facebook company, and
Agree.
that's it.
One theme I've got saying with the conference really is not just a viewer panel, seeing what can be developed there, but the Saturday panel is how the OpenSim can establish itself more, but also coexist with a lot of the open metaverse stuff that has been worked on. And the important thing is it's got to be the open source metaverse, not the wall garden thing of Meta or whatever. And to me, there's no stuff major businesses operating in OpenSim. Some of them already do behind, they're not in a hybrid grid. They're like back offices, people run servers and things through their virtual interface. So the platform is open, but it's used for a lot of things, both commercial, non-commercial, and principally community, of course. Um, but there have to be ways that, I mean, even Philip Rosedale, who of course is he's consultant again with Second Life, so it's about a wall garden thing, but he's actually sort of, he's came back and raising, we did that 20 years ago. What the hell does this newfangled metaverse company on the web, saying, well, we're doing that and we're holding a concert or something? They don't know what they're doing. They end up with two people there and the thing doesn't work properly. And I mean,
that's exactly why they're irrelevant, because they are very late and, if you allow me on air, a bit half-assed.
Exactly. They're 20 years too late, and sort of they're not. They haven't bothered to investigate what's been done already. It's a bit like starting, 20 years ago, starting something like Second Life and ignoring the fact that 20 years earlier than that, there was something called VRML.
Yes.
Or their.com, the tribe convenes in its place and it sort of starts considering itself exclusive. But I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, I just think this, but how would, for example, the people in Facebook feel if somebody suddenly was all over the news saying, "Oh, I've just invented a way that you can connect socially with all your friends and share photographs," as if they, they would be like, "Well, I've already done that, and this is exactly the same situation." They would think that was absurd. So it's just a lot of noise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rich people making a lot of noise.
yeah,
One aspect of OpenSim, and I'm going to open a whole new can of worms here. One aspect of OpenSim,
Yay.
which is regularly overlooked, and not just overlooked, but looked down in disdain by the powers that be in OpenSim, is the fact that OpenSim lacks a usable, user-friendly economy system. Something that grids can implement quickly, easily, painlessly to have their own economy. It just doesn't exist. There are a couple of offerings out there, but they all have their shortcomings, and there's nothing there to allow people to build an economy around the grid, to really build an ecosystem where economic transactions can take place, because in the end that's going to be if you want to bring this out in the big world, that's going to be a part of it. And
we don't.
Not having a good economy is a good economy system is putting brakes on OpenSim, and it has been holding it back for years.
This is what made Second Life, the Linden dollar, the Linden economy, and the way it was managed in contrary to the norms of running a currency. Yeah, we need that for sure. I mean, you can look at Kitely and you can look at Podex and you can look at, I mean, I don't know, there's 3 or 4 different virtual currencies in OpenSim, but there's very few grids that use all of them, and also it's silly, really. I mean, I could understand, a load of German grids having a virtual Deutschmark and a load of American ones having a virtual dollar, but to have to have the whole thing scattered where we can pick up freebies, we can sort of shop at Kindly Market and things like that, but and there are places you can go and you press a button and you pay by PayPal. So it's not as though there isn't a hint of commerce available, but like you say, it's individual channels rather than integrated economy.
Yes, and the fact that we don't have an established economy is also preventing investment into OpenSim in terms of developers. We need developers to push through with ideas, development timetable. There's only one guy making anything close to code for OpenSim at the moment. Okay, a couple of grids have their own versions and they're forked to the project, but there's really only one guy at the moment making on the working on the main project. Um, so the fact that we don't have an economy is basically shooting ourselves in the foot. We're depriving ourselves of investment, which we need.
This is this you mentioned there's only one person working. Oh, well, I think it's more than one person working on, but the this has always been the there's been a challenge. It's been discussed at conference and Stanford kind of people quite a bit, and that
Yeah.
is the a lot of the developers on OpenSim are so devoted to open source, rightly so, that they have almost a hostility to the idea of anything to do with money or commerce. And also, as developers, they're working on code and like the nitty gritty stuff of getting something to work. They're not actually interested in getting an economy plugin working or a particular type of content plugin working. They're just like the core platform is what they're thinking of. They're saying, well, if anybody is going to use this for commerce, they're going to have to build it on top of what we're doing, which is fair enough.
Yes, that,
Cool.
and don't you think there's also a huge problem of trust? Because anybody who sets up any kind of money system, there has to be that requires a lot of work, and it requires everybody to trust that if they put real world money in, then they're going to be able to get that real world money out again, that there's an address, an actual person, a physical place where they can, and a country in the world where they can take legal action if they don't get their money back. And that's a huge change in the way that most people come into OpenSim, because they kind of want to get away from all those attitudes and having to deal with money.
It's
Not everybody, but a large part of the community really just don't want to do that. They want to.
I mean, I agree. I love trotting around OpenSim, finding lots of free things, and
But it's true. It does hold. It's
work,
for
but,
sure.
you know,
The lack of investment is an issue for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I mean, certainly if there was an operator running something like Linden have the Lindex, it's called, right? And that's basically all money coming in and out and virtually and exchanging to dollars and everything else goes through that. Now, obviously, that's a subsidiary of a company that's a walled garden, world anyway.
Exactly, and they have lawyers too.
Yeah, but if you imagine this, sort of in the UK here, I bank with a bank called Santander, right? There used to be a building society, I think, or whatever, but they're a Spanish bank, right?
Yes.
Most people would not know that, because it's just another bank on the high street. Barclays is a British one, and HBC used to be, but people just trust the bank, right? And they know that they're not getting enough return on their savings or whatever, and things like that. The end of the story. But the bank has nothing to do with any individual thing they do, like land ownership or whatever.
Mhm.
All the money they use to buy land is in the bank. The money used to pay their rent, if they're renters, is in the bank. So the bank does handle all this stuff for you. Like, these days it's a piece of plastic. They can hold credit and debit and everything else. The thing is, the something like OpenSim, but not just OpenSim, kind of needs this sort of a way of having like a clearinghouse that has access to OpenSim for people, but it's a trusted entity in itself. In other words, it's not the OpenSim bank. That's too close to being OpenSim, but it will be a facility that OpenSim and maybe Vicadia and some of the other virtual platforms could actually use. I mean, the way that Sansar, for example, uses, it's no longer involved with Second Life, but it still uses Linden's, the name of, I've forgotten the name of it already, but it's Lydia or something. It's the final,
Celia.
yeah. That service is all the money at Sansar is operated by that, but it's not like the investment money; it's the consumer's money, if you see what I mean. So it means you've got two very separate virtual worlds in style and platform, but are actually able to use the same, central clearinghouse, so to speak. And there's nothing to stop, you know, if somebody built something like that, they could maybe operate it, you know, in cooperation with somebody like Sciencebase, as well as all the open sim grids. In fact, the guy, what's his name? Not Kitely, the other guy who started a money system. He actually offered it to a lot of other games too. It was focused,
Globit.
yeah, it was actually focused on games because he saw this that you know, it's the same micro payment system that gamers
Yes.
use. So, in fact, although OpenSim is not a game and games are games, then the actual method of transaction would be pretty much the same, just for a different purpose, so to speak.
Well, I think we found another panel topic.
Yes.
Yes.
It goes deep. Goes deep.
Yeah. What a great show. This would be a great subject for another
Yes,
episode of
we
Inworld
are.
Review too.
Yeah, we are a bit over the hour for this week. So yes, I think we should probably shut ourselves up before we
Fascinating.
end up.
I really enjoyed it. It's a great show today. I learnt a lot.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Right. So, any more comments other than for me, James?
Oh, I'm all good. Thank you.
And Una, any final thoughts, being as you're the guest?
No, just thank you profusely for having me tonight. It's been a great experience being in your show.
Yeah, great experience having you on the show. So, okay, well, it's thank you very much. Thank you, Una, for being here.
My pleasure.
And also thank you for James for pulling out all the plugs.
Yep.
And fiddling with them.
Yep.
And thanks to my co-host Thursday for being such an informative and intriguing.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun to be here today.
Yeah,
Enjoyed it.
You're a great interviewer too. You get more fun
Oh, thank you.
than I do. I will thank myself, but you know. And thank you to my great Dane, who's been amusing me in the background there. And that person's cat, which doesn't move very much,
Yes.
but it is there.
No, it may be dead. We don't know.
Well, I finally learned to return to my normal sound, my really old sign outline. I resurrected after a few years. And all I'm going to do, until next week, that is, I'm going to wish you all a very good morning, or a very good afternoon, or a very good evening, or indeed a good tomorrow, depending on wherever and whenever you are. We'll see you next week.